Hey folks, in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of the infotainment design and development in the automotive industry in 2026 and 25. A little bit look back and a little bit look forward. I've been now in this industry more than 5 years, starting from software engineering and looking over projects and work with multiple different companies in different countries and in different continents. So I'm going to be looking into roughly 3 categories of problems I've seen repeating in multiple different companies. None of these are really aimed into specific clients or specific projects. And I'm going to be using a video from IAA last year as background. So if some of the comments align with something that's shown in the video, that's just coincidence. I haven't planned it, haven't aligned the video. While there's a lot of positive happening in the industry and software is getting better overall, there's still a lot of problems that keep repeating and keep running the same problems and similar type of problems and seeing them across our clients and across other companies that we don't work with. The first area I would like to highlight, there's some process problems in infotainment design and development that seems to resurface a lot. One of the big ones, if you look at the systems that are being released, is that they are overly complex, in my opinion. Traditionally, car companies have built their infotainment systems as one big release. That was before over-the-air updates were enabled by mostly use of Android. And that seems to be sticking with them. Many of the companies don't seem to utilize the possibility of deferring some of the features to later releases. In my opinion, too few companies focus on the core use cases first. What I would love car companies to improve on is to really focus on the core, cut features, and making sure that the primary use case of the car, which is going from A to B, is well covered before jumping into all of the other additional features. I know a lot of the car companies need to think about sales and sales events, CES promos, or promoting to car journalists and so on, and the users tend to get less of a priority in the design of features. I wish more car companies would understand that the car is for moving from A to B and then getting out of the car, focusing on good and safe navigation, entertainment while driving, and all of the safety aspects of the car first, and after that, flooding the car with features, if there's time and if those features can be added without screwing up the previous features. If you couple the lack of focus on the core features with the reality that a lot of car companies are operating with really high friction environment between disciplines like design and development, a lot of the features don't get explored and tested before the decision to add them is being made. Automotive industry would do well to learn from mobile app development with rapid iteration speeds, involvement of a lot of different stakeholders in early phases and so on. I talked in another video about where companies waste a lot of effort and time. And this is one of those places where automotive industry is especially bad, which is removing friction. Often design departments and development departments are fully disconnected. Even QA is fully disconnected from the process. The only way to build good products is for all of these disciplines to be able to contribute in all part of the process. Development early phases, design during development, and QA throughout. Additionally, the lack of access to the actual hardware, which is understandable because having prototype cars are scarce, of course, in a project. But often management get to see the progress of a project only every quarter or even more rarely. And management feedback is taken into account in very short interactions instead of throughout the project. This comes a little bit from lack of experience of Android and lack of imagination how to tackle this kind of things. With the Android systems, you no longer have to run it in a car all the time. You can run it on dev boards, you can run it on emulators, and you can give access to people more quickly than before in these Linux-based systems. Every stakeholder could have a board running on their desk that's getting automatically updated to latest development version every day, and they could play around it whenever they wanted to, so feedback doesn't have to be delayed and focused in individual or short interaction sessions. Additionally, car companies do focus a little bit in different areas where I think they should. There's quite a bit effort spent into areas like third-party app support, especially if they are not in Google Play ecosystem or plan to be there. The idea of people wanting to write software for your car is somewhat naive. There's a very little return of investment in there. It was very striking when we were part of the COVESA initiative to standardize the app APIs throughout the car ecosystems in multiple manufacturers, that the manufacturers themselves were really unwilling to invest money into building that stuff, but they still wanted third-party applications to be there. I think manufacturers need to do a reality check to see how many app developers are willing to build software specifically for yourself. And maybe the better realization is that you don't need the third-party applications. You might get some of the second-party applications into your car and be happy with that and just focus on the core user experience and the most important parts of the car. Maybe the gaming can be done on iPad instead of in the infotainment system. One thing I would change if I was a dictator of a car company, I would change the secrecy around the infotainment system development. Traditionally, car companies are very secretive about their prototypes, their car launches, everything has to be highly coordinated and highly controlled by the manufacturer. And I understand that from the hardware perspective. And I understand the legal limitation of publicly traded companies and the communications that are allowed. However, taking a little bit different approach to infotainment development could be an interesting experiment, especially for some smaller car companies. Building this software more in public and showing progress publicly and trying to get the intrigue of the development community, which especially on Android is very, very strong, could be very beneficial to a lot of the companies. The idea that competition will copy all the ideas you have in your infotainment, I don't think is realistic. I don't think anybody's going to copy it. The probability that you get goodwill from community and understanding of Android developers is much, much higher if you are willing to communicate and show progress, talk what you are doing. You don't need to show the car, but if you give access to emulators and experiment with APIs and in-car APIs that you could provide to software engineers, that would be a very fruitful place to have discussions with and trigger through innovation through third-party app developers. And that's something the car industry is currently completely missing. Android ecosystem was greatly driven in early phases by people building apps for themselves. And that's not possible in the car industry at the moment. People still build apps in the Google ecosystem, but they're still very rarely interesting or innovative because there's no APIs available in cars that allow app developers to build something truly new. And the power of a community is to crowdsource ideas and prototypes and thoughts and experiments and all of those kind of things. But you don't get that unless you are willing to give to the community first. The communities jump on board, but they see through bullshit of corporate bullshit and corporate marketing, and that won't work. You need to be part of the community and truly build in the open. You don't have to give access to all the source code on proprietary stuff or even your design systems. But you can figure out what can you do, what you can tell about the next upcoming vehicles or your current vehicles. What can you give out there? Can you give an interesting SDKs, interesting APIs? Can you give something to the community to make them actually truly interested to build for themselves? And lastly, I think this is where big corporations easily fail is their processes of purchasing and involving external developers in their projects. That's, of course, is my selfish interest of running an agency that operates in the automotive industry. But in the current purchasing processes, the purchasing departments are fully disconnecting what the dev teams and the design teams actually need from the companies. Large corporations are getting priority because they're able to flood these projects with hundreds of people. And that is seen in the organization as a safe bet, when in reality, that is ensuring the disaster in the project. Infotainment systems can be built with small teams as long as the teams are built the right way and they have the right skill sets. Android is a very modular system, and the core of the operating system can be built with 20 people in 2 years. Anything above that is too much spent and probably goes in negative in the project instead of positive. But that requires the team is the correct one. And at the moment, purchasing process and preference to massive corporations is causing project to spiral out of control and being flooded by people who might not be the right people to execute. Anyway, that's kind of maybe a little bit negative sounding view to the past year and the upcoming year of the infotainment systems. But like I said, there's a lot of positive happening in this industry. The systems are getting better. Some car companies are taking the courage to really create something simple and easy to use. And I don't think that's going to go unnoticed. And those are going to be the thought leaders in the automotive industry. An honorable mention to companies like Firefly, who had the courage to create a new modern system that looks more like an infotainment built by software engineers for mobile, but still functioning very well as a car system. Instead of flooding it with features, it's really focused on bringing the style of the company and the features that are actually needed to the user. And I think even premium brands could learn from that one. Premium doesn't have to mean complex. Premium has to mean good, and simple doesn't have to mean cheap. Simple and good can be in the same vehicle. And to sum up, what I would like to see car companies to do is to build a very, very solid core experience before going into complex use cases and flooding the car with features that might or might not be used. To execute that the right way, to remove the friction in your process, remove the friction of the disciplines, make sure design, development, QA all work together all the time and are able to contribute in the project all the time. And in that frictionless environment, enable rapid iterations to test ideas before decisions are being made to include or drop them. Always explore in multidisciplinary teams, ideas and thoughts in prototype form, either in car or similar environments. A car company feeling that they are unable to create a frictionless environment, my advice would be build the core first, make sure the core is very, very good, and then stop. Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk to you about today. Let's keep talking about cars and other stuff on the channel, and see you again in the next video. Bye bye.